Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is season 5, episode 24. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. This week I'm talking to Assal. Assal works in engineering at Uber in Seattle, but has a bit of an unusual background. She's the first person I've interviewed who has been detained in another country due to geopolitical tensions when she was stuck in Iran for a few years. She was actually born there and grew up in the Middle East, so we talk about life with misophonia in that part of the world. We talk about tea delivery boys, punching a boyfriend, and some weird suggestions by a past therapist. Despite things about being a prisoner in another country, this is actually one of the funniest interviews I've had so far. Remember, you can shoot me an email at hello@misophoniapodcast or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at misophoniapodcast. I sometimes also check the Twitters at Misophonia Show. You can also actually message me in the Misophonia Podcast app as well, and I'll get your messages there. Thanks for the ongoing support, as usual, by our Patreon supporters. And if you can contribute, you can read all about that at patreon.com/misophoniapodcast. And of course, as always, one of the best ways to spread the word is to leave a quick review or rating, and it helps us rise up in the podcast algorithms. All right, here's my conversation with Assal. Assal, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so want to tell us kind of where you are?
Absolutely. Yeah, I am actually located in Seattle, Washington.
Okay, yeah.
I've been living here for about 15 years or so. I was born in Iran, lived there till I was about 8 years old, moved to Dubai, so the United Arab Emirates, lived there for about 8 years, moved back to Iran for a good 4 years, and then moved here to, go to college and all that. And then I just happened to stay.
Yeah. What do you do there for work or
I work for Uber on the engineering side, so corporate.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of engineer? On the apps or
so
inside?
I'm actually not an engineer myself. I'm a program manager, and I'm on the learning and development side. So we design trainings for engineers, and my focus is primarily on policy and compliance.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I used to live very close to the headquarters in San Francisco, down on
very nice.
Down on Folsom Street. They were on Market, but yeah,
I was actually there until yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I lived at 7th and Folsom for a long time. I'm not giving anything away because I don't have that house anymore, so no privacy issues there. But
Sure.
Yeah, I know that area very well. I actually coincidentally used to live in Seattle downtown for a while before that. But enough about me. Very excited to have somebody who, grew up in the Middle East, Iran, and Dubai, because, we'll get into your kind of the origin story. Maybe we can actually start there. But if misophonia starts around that age 8-ish or whatever, I'm very curious. Also, having I was brought up in a Muslim household. You at least had that kind of culture around you. Very curious, kind of like, how did it all start with you, and what was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to mention this from the very beginning. I am not trying to hate on any culture or
Safe
any
space,
religion or anything like that. But it's so different. The amount of information and knowledge people have in different parts of the world regarding things like misophonia that didn't really surface until much later. So for me, it started around 8. I used to sit around the dinner table with my family, and we're like 3 siblings and my parents, and the first thing it started with was with salad. So cucumbers and lettuce. And actually, Iranians use cucumbers as a fruit. We always have a fruit bowl on the table, and they're always present. And I couldn't understand the feeling I'd have towards the sound. It was almost like a twitch, you know what I mean? I didn't know why it was bothering me. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that I was being bothered. So since the age of 8, I actually would put my food on a tray and I would eat alone in front of the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that, my parents would allow me to actually do that, because nobody in my family had any idea about misophonia, neither did I.
Right.
But I would just, I'm like, I can't, I'm being bothered. I don't know what's happening. So it didn't really escalate from salads. It was like that for a long time until I remember visiting my family in Iran for, I think it was the Iranian New Year, so around springtime. And Iranians, they tend to crack seeds, like sunflower seeds,
Mm-hmm.
which is the bane of my existence.
Mm-hmm.
They, especially like during the New Year, everybody visits each other, and they bring out like mixed nuts and fruit, and they crack seeds. And I tell my mom, like, I don't want to go visit. I just like it. It's so bothersome to me. And she's like, no, this is rude. It's the culture. You have to come and, stop being so spoiled. And like, it's not being about spoiled. Like, I'll have to sit in the bathroom. And this is like, I think I was around maybe 11 by this time.
Yeah.
And I remember so vividly, I was telling my uncle, whom I love very much, about this issue. And he kind of held my wrist and chewed a whole cucumber in my ear, because he thought I was just being like a little, I don't know, like a spoiled brat. And my tears were just flowing. Yeah. And I'm like, this is the meanest thing anybody could, like, how is it that nobody believes me? If I could not pay attention to it, I would, but I can't.
Yeah.
Like, so then it was from there, like going to school, sniffing, people, kids would, catch a cold, and they would sniff all the time, or like breathing. And again, back then I really thought I had an issue. Like, I was crazy, and I don't know why I would keep doing this. I'd get angry. And it's funny because many years later, and this might be a tangent of like 20 years later, I kind of get in contact with friends from back in middle school in Dubai, or elementary school even. And randomly, people would tell me, hey, remember how pissed off you used to get when this sound happened? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't even remember that. But it's so interesting that I had made such a point about it, even in like, my early years. So
interesting. So your friends have like, even though you kind of maybe forgot about it, it was so vivid to your friends and so odd to them that they're calling you up randomly 20 years later in the middle of the night. Hey.
The truth of the matter is, I'm a very happy person. Adil, I laugh all the time. It looks like life was gifted to me. So when I call it my Hulk mode, when I get my miso attacks, I'm just as I'm sure you already know. I turn
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Hulk. Yeah,
like Hulk angry, Hulk, and I turn into a completely different person, which really shocks people, right? And I guess maybe that's why they remember. And also, I keep looking, like I keep looking at the sound, almost like I'm going to come eat you if you don't stop. So it started with salad, but it kept growing into breathing, sniffing, clipping of nails, typing, chewing anything, slurping, scratching.
Pretty quickly, right? Like in kind of that while you were still in school.
Like half a second. Yeah. And again, I had no idea what was going on. I remember I started working in Iran, and the poor girl next to me, she ate all day, right? All day. And I would actually hide in the conference room and cry. Like, I can't tolerate this. This is when I was like 18.
Yeah.
And people would just kind of like, don't pay attention to it. Why are you so sensitive to it? Just think about something else. And that's what I hated most, because I felt like people wouldn't. Why would I want to suffer? If I could, like, shift my focus, I would. but I can't. And
What
so
would you tell them? Like, would they just see you in the conference room, then you'd have to explain, or did you ever just kind of say, "Hey, I've got this problem"? And I know that's
no,
not the
I
kind of
didn't.
thing that we would tell people are of our culture, but I'm curious if you
uh,
if that ever crossed your mind.
yeah, so I wouldn't tell the girl next to me because I felt so bad.
Yeah.
But everybody else, I'd be like, she's eating again. And I didn't know
Okay.
what it was. I'm like, is it because she doesn't eat politely?
Yeah.
Is it
Did
because
you
she
think
chews with her mouth open? Yeah.
did you think that other people were also annoyed, or did you realize
No,
that, hey, this is at
no,
that point
I
this is
was
probably just
sure,
me? Yeah.
gosh, Adil, I was sure I was crazy
Yeah.
because nobody else would ever talk about it. Nobody. Um,
And just
so
to set the scene for people, I mean, whether it's like, at home with the sunflower seeds, there's probably not a lot of like background music. It's not like, or maybe there was, I don't know, but it seems like in at least in our cultures, it's not like music's playing. It's usually pretty quiet.
it's
And then you
very
get these
quiet.
sounds
Like
cracking. Yeah.
here's what it was. I was 18. I was an executive assistant to this private firm, and you can imagine there's a big desk with two people sitting behind it, so myself and my coworker, and silence. Right, it was just
Yeah.
us in this big room. The accountant who used to type all these numbers and use the calculator, which I could have thrown out the window. Then the what we refer to, and I'm not being rude, this is what it's referred to as the tea boy. And the
Yeah.
tea boy
Yeah.
is the person who brings tea to everybody, cleans the office, all of that. And he would be washing stuff, and I would pray every day, like, please continue washing dishes or doing something. So that would be like a background noise for me. But other than
Mm,
that, it was just silence. And you can
yeah.
imagine, like, my coworker would open up her little Tupperware, and there it was, because she was trying to be healthy, carrots
Oh,
and
yeah.
celeries. Oh my God. And what you tried to do. So I discovered that I could use, headphones,
Mm-hmm.
but the headphones back then, man, technology wasn't that great back then. There were these like measly headphones that would have a sound as well. Like the higher you would turn off the
Yeah.
volume, and it just
Yeah.
hurt your head, but you could still hear the celery. Oh,
Right.
I don't even want to go back to those days. Awful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then speaking of T-Boy would bring around tea that would then have to be put in the mouth in ways that are not necessarily the quietest. We should put it that way.
So tea, of course, I'm sure, in the Middle
Big part
East,
of
a
the
lot of the
culture.
cultures,
Yeah.
oh, huge part of the culture, 3-4 times a day. And I'm not sure why people insist on drinking it the moment it's poured. So then they'll have to slurp it.
Yeah.
And like,
Right.
this would
Because
be
it's so
so,
hot. Yeah.
yeah, it would be my God, like, let it cool so you wouldn't have to slurp. I'm sure it's not a very nice feeling burning your tongue. So I'm getting angry. I'm getting annoyed. I think these people, they're out of their mind all day, every day. I'm
Yeah.
no joke. Like, there were so many triggers at work that it was like fight or flight for me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the thing that has always been with me, and it still resonates today, is I don't tell people of my problem, or I try to avoid explaining it to anybody because I feel like it's my situation and I need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ask anybody to change their habits because that would bother me more. I'm like, oh, I'm such an inconvenience to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would just run away and cry.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
funny,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah.
Well, it's not funny. That's. I think we all understand the laughing at it because we do the same thing. It's like tears of. Well, it's like tears of tears, and then we laugh at our own tears, and
Exactly.
it's you have to. It's just no other way to stay sane. So,
Right.
but
And so, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say so. Yeah. So how did it start to affect like your school and your work performance? Did you feel like it? Because at some point then you get that added stress of like, like, am I gonna not be able to advance in my career, or maybe, my grades will suffer. It seems like you're super successful now, so that
Thank
obviously
you.
wasn't the case. But that's going to be a level of stress too. A lot of people are able to get by school age without and college without maybe getting triggered too much. But sounds like you was like maximum for you from 8 years
I
on.
so it didn't affect my school. I can't say I was always focused,
Hmm.
just because the sniffling would just
Yeah.
drive me nuts. So I can't say I was focused all times, but it didn't really stop me from getting the grades I wanted or anything like that. Um, I moved to the States when I was 21, and I started working as a contractor at Microsoft, actually.
Mm.
And it was working out so well with my school. I was attending the University of Washington. I would take night classes. And of course, the deal, night classes come with people who haven't eaten all day.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Dude, I'm seeing the forks come out of the bags already and the
The
Tupperware.
Doritos, those darn Doritos.
Oh, right. They need that snack after. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, when you live in Seattle, it's allergies, cold,
Right. Right.
rain. So I I'd go to work, and at that time I was very lucky to have an office by myself, even though contractors don't really get that fancy deal. But it just happened that my team had an extra office, so that would be fine. School, however, not so fine. I started dating somebody right around that time, and he was actually the only
Mashallah.
one.
We just offended so many people. Continue.
It didn't last. It didn't last. If that
Okay.
helps.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I told him what the situation. I actually ended up punching him a few times.
This is sounds?
Yeah, like,
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
so here's the situation. I won't say anything until it's too
Right.
late for me. Like, I'm like, tolerate it, tolerate it, tolerate those damn Pringles, 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 and then I punch him on the arm, like, oh, and he's like, well, why don't you say something? I'm like, because I don't want to. Like, this is my
Yeah.
problem, and it's so emotional for
Right.
me.
Right.
And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
crazy and this and that. I started seeing this therapist at the same time. And I remember he said, you know, write all these sounds that bother you on a piece of paper and go in the shower and let it wash out. And I'm thinking,
That's a
what?
new one. Yeah.
What is that? No, I really have a problem. And he was like, no, it's not a problem. It's this, this, this. Anyway, my savior
Oh,
at the time was my boyfriend, who actually said, Assal, I'm sure other people suffer from this like you do. I'm like, no, they don't. He's like, I promise. Do a little search on the internet. Hatred of
hmm
sound, or repetitive
hmm
sounds that bother me. And my gosh, that wasn't the best day of my life. I don't know what was. There is forums and people just saying, my coworker is, typing with acrylic nails, and I'm like, oh, what a relief.
Yeah.
I have never met anybody who has felt the same way. This rage, this anger, oh my God, I felt so free. It was amazing. And I read that somebody had started using earplugs, and that it would only, kill like 33%, like 33 decibels or something like that. And my boyfriend at the time was like, try it out, try it out. Oh, I would take those earplugs to school.
Hmm.
And of course, if they asked me a question, I would answer it really loudly because I hadn't been accustomed to it.
Well, Asal's a very assertive student.
How do you feel about the environment? The environment! And everyone just look at me like, what is your problem? So it took a while for me.
They're like, she's the one with sound sensitivities? Hmm.
The other part was, then you'd learn that you're talking loudly. So then you would talk, to
Right.
yourself. And people are like, what? What? And I'm like, what? What? So it's a situation for a while. But those helped me out so much. And my, bless his heart, my boyfriend at the time would always carry a pair of earplugs in his pocket.
Mhm.
So when we go to restaurants, especially Mexican restaurants, because of the chips and the
The
salsa and all of
chips.
that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Socializing had become so difficult just because, people want to eat chips and we're very tribal. We want to hang out all the time. We want to socialize and it become really difficult. So I started wearing the earplugs at work, but then um, we got some more contractors and then I had to share my room with two other people. And the
Oh
earplugs
boy.
were no longer helping.
Yeah, I was
The
gonna say at some
constant,
point the honeymoon period of the
oh
earplugs
yeah,
might.
there it's over.
Yeah.
The typing, constant typing, um, was driving me insane. So I resigned. I went to,
Mm,
my manager and I said, I can't, I was bawling. I said, I can't do it. It's like, I feel like I'm dying, like
mm,
little by little. I just can't do it. And I called my sister at the time. Oh, he told me, take the day off, relax, called my sister and I said, this, and I don't want to work anymore. I can't do it. So she was nice enough. She bought me a pair of noise canceling Bose headphones. Oh, a deal. I went to work the next day. It's like, type, 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 type. And it's almost like I put the headphones on and it's like, whoosh.
yeah. 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 It's like medicine.
Oh, it was amazing. I still have those. This was back, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I started wearing those. I wear them on the airplane, helped me a lot at work. I still use earplugs here and there. I still use them when I eat with my family. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like the closer you are to the person, the more you've kind of memorized their mimics and their sounds
Mm-hmm.
and their ways of chewing. So you get more bothered because I anticipate it, right? I'm like, my
Yeah.
mom is about to, So
You
I
probably have
use.
some visual triggers at this point too.
I'm so happy you said that. I would actually like to discuss that
Yeah.
because I thought, what is this? Because the sounds sure should bother me, but
Right.
this visual thing, what is this? Is this a
It's
new
part of
thing?
the anticipation, I think. Yeah, I think it's just like your brain's working backwards, trying to give you a more advanced warning of the danger that lies ahead. Is the only thing I can it's the only way I can explain it. Yeah, that's very common. But yeah, at first it's like, oh God, I'm just trying to keep up with the visual with the audio stuff, and then the visuals are a whole other thing.
Oh, yeah, I started noticing that. So we eat herbs with our food,
Mm,
parsley, cilantro, mint,
hmm.
tarragon, whatever.
Oh, I'm getting
And my
hungry.
mom always has this big, bamboo bowl of herbs. And herbs, they're not that noisy to me, but she refuses to take a handful and put it on her plate. So she always reaches out. There's this constant motion of her right arm reaching out to these herbs.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha.
I cannot.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah. So it's become worse. It's become much worse. I mean, the range of
That's probably
things that
more like
bother me now.
repetitive motion,
Exactly.
um,
Repetitive motion.
or repetitive I mean, sorry, mom, but unnecessary motion. Um, is yeah, I can definitely see that because your brain is like, why is that happening? Why does that need to happen?
It's like
And
boom, boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, boom.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Repetitive motions. Now, some of them, it's not definitely to the extent of my misophonia.
right, right.
And
So, so your
go ahead.
parents are here are in
They're in
Seattle
Seattle.
now?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
They're in Seattle. And believe it or not, my dad still doesn't know what bothers me because I don't say it.
Okay, he has no idea. You haven't
He,
mentioned it at
no,
all.
he knows, but he
Okay,
just doesn't know the extent. He does this
okay.
weird thing with his ear, which sounds like snorting when he
Mm-hmm.
gets out of the shower, and I become suicidal, Lydia. I'm like I cannot. So imagine this. I'm 37 now. Maybe about 2 years ago, he came up to me and he said, "Does this noise bother you?"
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, honest to goodness, I love you, but it's the worst. I cannot, please. And he stopped it. I,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, he was
Uh,
going to make the sound and he stopped it, like,
no, he
or
has stopped it. He doesn't do it anymore.
oh, gotcha. Okay, so he asked you like, okay,
Yeah.
does this bother you? And
And I'm like,
proactively, it was just
these
like,
so
cut it
many
out.
years, I haven't
Yeah.
said anything. I could have stopped it.
Well, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, but I have a better tangent story in the middle of all this.
Yeah, yeah. Please.
Imagine this: 2016, I'm working at Microsoft. I'm now a full-time employee. I've got my life in order, living the life. And my brother still lives back in Iran. So I take a 3-week vacation to visit my brother for his 40th birthday. And let it be said, I've never said this live, but I'm going to tell you now. I flew to Iran at the airport, past passport control, airport control. And they called my name, and the Iranian government confiscated my passport. And instead of staying for 3 weeks, I ended up staying for 3.5 years.
What?
Yeah, they were keeping me as collateral for a man who had fled the country and pulled a Snowden and is under US protection. This is still true to this day, by the way. So,
Yeah.
yeah. He so the reason why they kept me as collateral was because this man was my aunt's friend's husband. And because I'm close to my aunt and I live in the States, what I should have known about it, I'm not sure. And to pull it back into misophonia, I thought, when we stress out, when we're tired, when we're
Right.
angry, of course, the misophonia gets worse. But I found that I'm using the earplugs less in Iran
Mm.
than I was in Seattle, even though the stress of everything it was tumultuous. I mean, the PTSD I have from that.
Wow.
But I think it's because it was such a populated, noisy world. It was never fully quiet.
Mm-hmm.
People listen to music all the time. There's cars honking everywhere. People don't sleep until 3 a.m. So there's all these sounds. And of course, I like to explain to people, for me, it's the sounds of humans that bothers me. It's not the ticking of the clock. It's not the water drops, dripping from the tap. None of that. That doesn't bother me at all. My dog's chewing is actually very pleasant to me.
Mm.
He,
Mm-hmm.
he has these kibbles, and I sit there and just watch him chew. Babies, uh, chewing and eating, that doesn't bother me. It's just from a certain age that
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain why it's the way it is. And so, even though that period of my time was so stressful, um, I just didn't use the earplugs as much. Um,
Interesting.
yeah,
So you said this is
yeah,
Tehran, right?
yeah. This is
The
Tehran,
big, yeah, the giant city. Okay, yeah, I can see how there'd be
giant.
a lot of background noise. And you were stuck there, but it wasn't like you were, in like,
I just couldn't leave the
some
country.
underground cave or something. Okay, yeah, you were probably staying with your brother or whatever for a few
No, I
years.
was living with my brother
Crazy.
for 3.5 years. I lost my job, my relationship, my apartment, my savings, everything. Iranians tend to call it like the MP3 format.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. Um, yeah, it was a very challenging period of my life. Um, then I came back here, and that was when the misophonia just turned, another corner.
Wow.
I
So it
came
took
back to this.
another step up.
Oh yeah, I came
Yeah.
back. So exactly 2 years ago is when I came back to Seattle,
Mm.
and I think it was almost like waking up from a 50-year coma, where life has changed. Your friends have moved on. Everyone's married, or they've moved to another state. The city looks different. You don't have that identity. No more job.
Yeah.
And I think I came back with an expectation and of how life was going to look, and I was going back to the same identity, but that just didn't exist anymore. And that's when everything just was really bad. This is September of 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly 2 years ago. And
Were you in contact with anybody here
oh
while you were
yeah,
gone? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I was
But then
actually.
things were changing. People were moving on with
I
stuff.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah.
That's how it is in America. I mean, if I were to find my first grade friend in Tehran, she probably still lives in the same house.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it's not that way here. So yeah, I woke up angry. The noises so I had to live back with my parents
Hmm.
because I wasn't working, and emotionally I was just a mess. And I'd wake up in the morning with hearing my mom put the dishes away,
Mm.
and that would just send me off the edge. I was angry all the time, yelling. I couldn't handle it. It was just so awful. And I wanted to go back to the therapist that I was seeing before I left, but of course, with no job, the insurance situation.
Hmm.
So finally, May of 2020, I started working and I started seeing the therapist again. And she said, you're doing everything that I would recommend for you to do. Um, you're exercising, socializing, eating healthily, but I feel you're down spiraling so fast, and you don't, your anxiety levels are just insane. And I would recommend, you get a psyche bout.
Hmm.
And I thought I was the biggest loser. If I can't control this myself, if I can't help myself, then, I've lost the game. And I've always been like that in my life. I just want to fix everything by myself, kind of like a control freak.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But, I talked to my mom about it, and she kind of begged. She's like, please see the psychiatrist. We're scared of you. It's so bad. And so, of course, the psychiatrist said, anxiety is pretty bad. We recommend, this anti-anxiety medication. I don't know if I can say the name. Is that okay?
Yeah. I don't have any rules against it. It's
Yeah.
up to you.
So
Yeah.
yeah. No, I just didn't know if it's okay. So she prescribed Lexapro,
Hmm.
and I've been taking it for about a year now. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I feel like it's actually helped with my misophonia.
Okay.
I, of course, still get triggered, but I feel like I can focus my attention elsewhere much faster than I could have before. Or
Gotcha.
sometimes
Okay.
I just stop hearing it.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Right.
You're
I
able
must
to
say,
take your mind away
yeah,
from,
I can,
yeah.
just divert my attention somewhere else. And although I must tell you, we've been working from home for such a long time, and I'm living
Yeah.
in my own space with my dog, and it's very quiet and it's lovely and it's heaven and everything. This past week, um, I was attending a summit in San Francisco, and I went back to work. And I can't say there were as many people as there would have been pre-COVID, but there were
Hmm.
about, I don't know, 30 people in one huge conference room. And
Hmm.
I could hear the typing again because people
Hmm.
pull out their laptops, and
Right.
that still.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I never want to come back to work again. Just
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
leave, stay at home. So yeah, that's my long story long for you.
No, no, that's no, that's really fascinating. There's all a bunch of things that I want to get into. Actually, one thing is curious how then when you came back, how was it like to kind of go back into the workforce? Was it did you have any dread like this job at Uber? Was it something you brought up during the onboarding or
Huh.
pre-onboarding process?
It's interesting you ask, actually. So Microsoft kept me on board for 2 years without being in the office
Mm-hmm.
when I was stuck in Iran, which was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic of them. October of 2018, they sent me an email that, they don't have a business justification to keep me on board anymore because they don't even know if I'm ever coming back,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
understandable. I came back. My manager at the time at Mark, she actually came to the airport to greet me. And it was just, so I was still in touch with so many people from my work and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And at the time, they didn't have any headcounts. And, all this stuff happened. I couldn't go back to Microsoft. And I started applying vigorously to everything I knew, right?
Yeah.
All these big companies, even at Microsoft, it was like a black hole, the deal. Just, I would get nothing back. Nothing. No rejection, no acceptance, nothing.
Oh.
And it wasn't that I wasn't working in Iran. I was. And as you can imagine, Iran being sanctioned, you need to be so creative because you need a workaround for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting to the internet is a situation of its own,
Mm-hmm.
And I came back thinking I'm so much better. I'm so much stronger. I'm so much this, so much that. I have so much more knowledge. I worked, in a startup. I worked in advertising. I worked in, funding, investments. So why am I not getting any leads? And that's when you start getting discouraged. Like, I'm not relevant. I
Yeah.
am not as good as these people. And everybody must be so much more advanced than me. And of course, there's all these softwares they're learning and all these things that they're exposed to. And oh my God, I suck. And of course, I'm not going to get a job. And then I started getting, sort of like the Stockholm syndrome of I need to go back to like the people that have captured me because I just don't belong.
Oh, so yeah. So when you came here, you felt kind of you start to feel inferior, and then you almost
Yeah,
wanted to go back to
super
Iran.
inferior.
Yeah. Yeah. Like imposter
And
syndrome a little bit.
right, and you're looking
Yeah.
at people. I mean, it's kind of mean for me to say, but like I'd meet people, and I'm like, "How do you have a job?" And I
Yeah. I
don't.
do. I do it all the time. But no, I
Right, and
understand.
so
Yeah.
and there's these people who are like working for these great big companies, and they're making so much money, and they're like, "Oh, I hate going to work." And I'm like, then
Mm,
give me your job because I would love to go to work.
right.
Um, so yeah, super inferior, very discouraged. It was awful. I then my sister was, she was getting her some sort of law degree at the University of Washington, and she told me. And by the way, let it be said, I network like it's nobody's business. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I I have so many leads. I have so many friends that work in big companies, small companies. But there was just nothing. Nobody would follow up with me. Like I would reach out to a person like 3 times, 4 times. And then when you don't hear back, you're kind of like, well, I don't want to bug them. I don't want to
Yeah.
be the beggar. You don't know. So finally, my sister met somebody who was working at like an aerospace company and they were looking for a PM in contracts. I'd never been in aerospace, never in contracts, but I was like anything at this point, anything. I want to feel relevant. I feel so stale, like I'm
Mm,
losing everything I know. So I was working there for a few months, I think 8 months or so, until somebody reached out to me who I had networked with prior, and they said, "Are you still looking for a job?" And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
"What? Yes, yes, still looking for a job. Oh, we have a few positions opening up at Uber, in engineering. And I always wanted to be in engineering. So, if you're interested, please apply." And that was that. And it's been so blissful.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty recent. So have you had to do any office work there in the office, or has it all been remote?
Our offices are open actually, but
Yeah.
you're not required to go in until January.
Okay. Okay.
And even
Gotcha.
if we do go back in, they have presented us with a hybrid model. So 50%
Yeah.
in office, 50%. Yeah.
Are you looking forward to that hybrid model, or are you like remote only for me, headphones, earplugs?
Look, hybrid model for sure. Even
Yeah.
though I heavy misophonia situation, I love, seeing people and socializing and all of that.
Well, I think with the hybrid is, I feel like I feel like you get the best of both worlds because
Absolutely.
at least for me, my stress level would be down knowing that, okay, if I'm triggered today, I don't have to be here all week anyway. So it's just like, I can just
Exactly.
compartmentalize it a little bit.
And funny to tell you, Adil, when I was in San Francisco this past week, I have a coworker who actually is located in Seattle as well. And we were sitting, and I don't tell people of my situation of my misophonia. We're sitting, and she turned it on and she said, I think the office is going to be a bit hard for me. And I said, why? She's like, I suffer from this thing called misophonia. I know. like,
Yes.
wait, what? I know. It's amazing.
And so are you two like BFFs planning trips
Oh,
together?
for sure.
Yeah.
I said, so, you start comparing.
Yeah.
What about this? Does that bother you too?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
That's
You kind of watch
fantastic.
out for each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. You feel like you kind of know half a person's life because you've been through a lot of the similar
True.
experiences. Except that I've
True.
never had a T-boy, but one day I aspire to that. Um,
T-boy
that's
is a
not.
thing in Iran.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah.
office has it.
Oh man.
I know.
Head of T-boy. Head of T is probably would be
Head of tea.
the name of the
Yeah.
position here. Yeah. Um, yeah, fascinating. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad things have. I know it was a roller coaster, but I'm glad things seem like they've worked out quite well, and you're in a pretty good position here at Uber and in your work environment. The another thing I wanted to talk about is kind of like relationships with your friends, but also like your family. I'm very interested in situations like that uncle that you say you love so much, but would did something like that exposure thing to you. I mean, how do you ever like how do you still remember that when you talk to him? Like, does that create any kind of like lingering resentment to have like people close to you who trigger you on purpose?
Interesting you ask. I have no resentment. He's actually one
Mm,
of my favorite people in the world. But
yeah.
I must say, I will never forget that cucumber incident. Ever.
That never happened again, right? Is he
It
aware of
never
your
happened again.
sensitivity? Okay,
No.
yeah, yeah.
At all. And I would never bring it up to him because I know he would feel
He would
awful
do it
about
again.
it.
He would take
Yeah.
our wrist again, grab a cucumber.
Yeah. With
Right, he
my
would feel awful
family,
about it. I see. Okay, yeah.
my brother who lives in Iran, if he wants to do something that he knows might bother me, he'll say, Assal, earplugs, you
Okay,
know.
okay, yeah.
My mom, it's so funny and so sad at the same time. She'll try to slow motion her eating. She'll kind of take a spoon and
Right.
slowly move
It
it
comes from a
towards
good
her.
place, but
I know. And then I'm like, just chew it. I
yeah,
can't wait for this sound to come and bother me.
it's like I said, yeah, it comes. I can see it comes from a good place, but it's
Um,
faster if you did it like five times faster, even 1.1 times faster, just so that it could be done with.
my sister does not care at all. She and she'll eat what she wants to eat. She doesn't care that I'll wear earplugs or not. She won't change her habits because of me, and I kind of appreciate it. But at the same time, I have a little bit of resentment. Like, don't you know that this is going to
Mm-hmm,
bother me?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But they always have, a bottle of earplugs at their place, and they know. Like
mm-hmm.
once we start eating, she says, "Well, it's in the laundry room. Do you want to go grab it or whatever?"
Yeah,
Friends, very interesting question. How I don't tell people about it.
yeah,
Sometimes I feel close enough that I'll expose my vulnerability and I'll say, guys, so I want to tell you, I have this issue. This is what it is. And the responses I get are so frustrating that it makes me not tell anybody for another decade.
yeah.
One response is they'll start doing something repetitively, like clicking their fingers or scratching or chewing or slurping. And they're like, does this bother you? Does this bother you? Does this bother you?
Ugh, yeah.
I'm like, what?
These are
Why
adults,
would
right? In their
these are
30s, and
adults. These are
yeah,
educated, cultured adults. Not saying that education brings much, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
people who have
No.
been exposed to information. The other thing is, oh, you're just too sensitive. That
Yeah.
that just throws me off. Like, don't listen to it. Don't listen to it. And I'm like,
So how do you respond? Because you've obviously taken the step to. It's fascinating because you said you hold it in. You've only
yeah,
exposed your vulnerability until you've
my
probably made that calculation that where
my reaction is so bad. I'll be like, well, you're stupid.
well said. I would have gotten up if I overheard that and started clapping. Well,
your face
quietly,
is
but
sensitive.
yeah, yeah, your face is sensitive. Your mom's sensitive.
I it really bothers me, right? Because I'm like, look, I am letting you in on this thing that's super vulnerable to me. And
You have a
you can
question in
be
your friendship, like not to kind of
absolutely,
get in there,
they
but yeah.
go on my shit list. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, you're not logical and you have no empathy. So I know how to deal with you immediately because
So they get cut off at least temporarily
no, cut
or
off
permanently.
in my internal mind, you know.
Okay, okay, okay.
So, and the reason why I don't say it, so the other response is, okay, well, I'm going to take my bowl of chips and eat it in the kitchen because it's going to bother Asa. No,
Oh,
you don't need to change your habit. I
right.
will do whatever about don't make me feel like I'm responsible for this, you know, big drama because you're not joining the other people. It's just the responses
Yeah,
are just insane. I hate it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It exhausts many of us. So we usually, um, yeah, we should just kind of like don't do it, or we do um, other not indirect things like start a podcast, announce it that way. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's also, yeah, it's a common, unfortunately, reaction. And
Yeah,
does it affect then like making plans with people? Because, maybe you're going through a rough spell and, you don't want to go to the movies with your
for
friends.
sure. For sure. It used to stop me a lot. I'm the person who wants everybody else to be comfortable and not myself. I always put
Yeah.
myself last. And it used to bother me a lot. And then I've come to a place where now I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do me. And I don't care if that's not most convenient or ideal to you. For example, before, we'd like do like these cabin getaways and people would want to carpool the whole time and eat in the middle and all of that. And I used to get so bothered that I'd have to sit in a car with all these people with all these sounds. I don't want to carpool. Yeah, but Assal, there's no parking. And I'm like, yeah, but now I'm just like, I'm bringing my own car. That's it. I
Hmm.
can't.
Hmm.
I can't share, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's become much better, I must say. Like just me standing up, like advocating for myself. It's definitely become better. But there are places where I'm like, I don't want to go. Uh, I don't know. Music has helped me a lot. Music is like my savior.
Listening to
Um,
music or
yeah, like
making,
if
yeah.
people come over, I'll always have music on, so I won't hear the chewing, the whatever
Right.
that's happening. And if I go to someone's house, I'll always ask like, "Hey, you guys want to play some
Hey, have you heard
music?"
the new Metallica album? Yeah.
Exactly. I saw a segment on 60 Minutes. I don't know if you've watched it on Misophonia, and
Oh.
yeah, they there's people much worse than me. I couldn't believe it. There was one girl, poor girl. She used to get her misophonia attack with her mom's voice,
Mm,
and that's
yeah.
awful. Can you imagine? And there was another person who would get bothered by their own sounds as well, because as you know, we can make all the sounds in the world, and it doesn't bother yourself.
Yeah.
At
No,
least I'm
I've
like,
interviewed, yeah, I've interviewed one or two people where yeah, they trigger like their own breathing sometimes triggers themselves to the point where they need help going to sleep. Like they
oh
have
my
trouble going to sleep, so they
gosh,
have to take sleep aids and whatnot. So, yeah, it does happen sometimes.
oh my gosh, I can't. Now I feel
Yeah,
like
and
there's
I
something
just
wrong.
interviewed recently someone recently who's the mother of a child who could not who suddenly at some point in high school just could not be around his parents, and so it
Yeah,
was very, and that's and as a parent, then the mother was obviously very confused, so that started a whole
of course.
research and discovery, and but yeah, the child just would always leave the room. So, so yeah, I think there were a lot of triggers there, voice and otherwise. And yeah, that woman's actually writing a book about it. I had her. Well, by the time this goes live, it would have been on Mary Petrie. But yeah, she's writing a book it's gonna be amazing. I've already read like little bits of it. My tangent there, but yeah, there are all kinds of. Yeah, it's quite a wide spectrum. So.
Wow. Yeah. I just hope they find something to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, research is starting to happen. Funding is starting to come forth through various foundations, and yeah, I hope there's progress. They're slowly getting closer to understanding bits of it, but some of these research papers, answer some things and create some more questions, and
of course,
but hopefully it goes in the right direction.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, we're getting close to an hour here. I wanted to see if you notice how this flies by, how it sounds like a broken record now.
I'm like, I can talk about all these noises forever.
I know. I just have to now get back to my own day job for a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to is there anything else you kind of want to share with people who are listening? Maybe some of them have a similar background, coming from countries with T-boys and other with places with kind of a low understanding of mental health issues or just
I think the biggest thing I've learned is kind of lower your expectations about how much information people actually have regarding things that are unknown. And I used to blame it a lot on the people. I can't believe you don't understand. And I can't, what do you mean? And if you lower your expectation and try to explain it to them in a format that they can understand, I think that would kind of actually help spread the information too, from person to person. And maybe more people will learn about it, and hopefully in the near future, we won't have to face this. Does this bother you? Does this bother you? Already, I've met a bunch of people who are suffering from misophonia that
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, have you met other people other than that coworker?
Yes. And it's unbelievable to me. I was sure I was the only person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you about 3 of my close friends. They suffer from it. We're all on different levels.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm probably the worst out of all of them. But yeah,
so then you get to kind of like team up a little bit on the naysayers.
Yeah, like sometimes we'll look at each other, during like gatherings, and he'd be like,
"You tag team," and you punch the friend, and then the other one tags in.
It's just nice to know you are understood. It's nice to know that there's somebody else that feels the way you do, and you're not alone in it.
Yeah, because it's so overwhelming. It's hard to express. So having somebody who you don't even have to explain it to is just a good feeling. Yeah.
And hey, don't be ashamed about opening up about it. I used to be, because I was embarrassed about it. But don't be ashamed. I think you learn very quickly that other people feel the same, and they might not know what it is. So you might be helping, somebody else out as well.
Yeah. Great words. Assal, I want to thank you. This is a fascinating and funny call. funny chat, which
you're a misophonia hostage friend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was going to say safe travels. I mean that on multiple levels. When you do travel again. We're glad you're here, and good luck. Yeah, go with your job, and let's stay in touch. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. No, thank you. This was fantastic. And I feel like I had so much built up aggression towards everything, and now I feel so much better.
Thank you, Assal. Glad you're here and thriving at Uber. If you liked this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or just hit the 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast. You can hit me up by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website, misophoniapodcast.com. And the easiest way to send a message is by Instagram at Misophonia Podcast. Follow there or Facebook. You can support the show by visiting the Patreon at patreon.com/misophoniapodcast. Theme music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.